I was halfway through installing my new fence when Sharon Pemberton from the HOA materialized in my driveway, like she'd been watching through binoculars, which she probably had been. My Siberian Husky, Ghost, was lounging in the shade of our oak tree, his thick white and gray coat brilliant in the afternoon sun. We just moved to Meadowbrook Estates in Scottsdale, Arizona 3 months ago, and I'd already learned that Sharon treated the homeowner association bylaws like they were the 10 Commandments delivered specifically to her. "Mr. Taylor," she said, her voice that particular pitch that made my jaw clench. "That animal needs to be inside. The temperature is 92 degrees. I wiped sweat from my forehead and looked at Ghost, who was happily chewing on an ice cube from his water bowl. "He's got water, shade, and he's only been out here for 20 minutes. Huskies are built for cold weather, but he's fine in short bursts." Sharon's lips pressed into a thin line. She was probably in her late 40s, with aggressively blonde hair that looked like she'd used an entire can of hairspray. And she wore khaki capris with a polo shirt that had the Meadowbrook Estates logo embroidered on it. According to Section 12, Paragraph 4 of our community guidelines, all pets must be properly supervised and cared for according to Arizona state regulations. He is properly supervised. I'm right here. I gestured to the fence post I was cementing. And cared for. That's why he has water and shade. I don't think you understand the seriousness of animal welfare, Mr. Taylor. She pulled out her phone. I'm calling animal control. You're joking. I never joke about community standards. She was already dialing. I wanted to argue more, but Ghost chose that moment to stand up, shake himself off, and trot over to me. His ice-blue eyes looked up at me with that goofy husky expression that always made me smile despite my frustration. He'd been my companion for 3 years, ever since my divorce from my ex-wife, and honestly, he was better company than most people I knew. "Hey, buddy," I said, scratching behind his ears. "Want to go inside?" Ghost's tail wagged, and I led him toward the house. Behind me, I could hear Sharon talking to someone on the phone, her voice dripping with false concern. I got Ghost settled inside with the AC running and returned to my fence. Sharon was still in my driveway. "They'll be here within the hour," she said triumphantly. "And if they find evidence of neglect, there will be consequences." "There's no neglect, Sharon. You're wasting their time and city resources. We'll let the professionals decide that." She finally left, probably to go patrol someone else's property for violations. I tried to focus on finishing my fence, but anger simmered in my chest. This was exactly the kind of nonsense I'd worried about when my real estate agent mentioned the HOA. But the house had been perfect, the price was right, and I'd figured I could handle a few annoying rules. 45 minutes later, an animal control truck pulled up. I braced myself for a confrontation, but the officer who stepped out didn't have the stern expression I expected. He was younger than me, probably early 30s, with dark hair and a genuinely friendly smile. "Afternoon," he said, extending his hand. "Officer Rick Martinez. I got a call about a husky in distress." "Patrick Taylor," I said, shaking his hand. "And no distress. My neighbor has issues with everything I do." Rick glanced at Sharon's house, where I could see curtains move in the front window. "Sharon Pemberton call this in, you know her." "Oh yeah, 3rd call this month from this neighborhood, all from her," he sighed. "Look, I still have to check on the dog, protocol." "I understand, come on in." I led Rick inside, where Ghost immediately bounded over, his tail wagging so hard his entire back end wiggled. Rick laughed and crouched down, letting Ghost sniff his hand before petting him. "Hey there, beautiful boy," Rick said. Ghost responded by trying to lick his entire face. "Oh man, you're friendly. What's his name?" "Ghost. He's 3 years old, fully vaccinated, vet checks every 6 months. I pulled out my phone and showed him the most recent vet records I kept in my files. I work from home as a software developer, so he gets plenty of attention and exercise. Rick stood up, still petting Ghost, who was leaning against his leg like they were best friends. He's clearly healthy. Good weight, clean coat, happy disposition. Can I see his outdoor space? We walked through to the backyard. I'd installed a dog run along one side with artificial turf that wouldn't burn Ghost's paws, a covered area with a cooling pad, and multiple water stations. My fence project was to replace the chain link that came with the house with something more substantial. "This is great," Rick said, genuinely impressed. "Most people don't go to this much trouble. The cooling pad is a nice touch. Huskies aren't meant for Arizona heat, but he's my family. I make it work." I showed him the schedule I kept on my fridge. He goes out early morning and evening for long walks when it's cooler. Midday he gets maybe 15, 20 minutes max, and only with water and shade available. Rick nodded, taking a few photos on his phone. "I have to document everything, but I'm writing this up as unfounded." "Your dog is obviously well cared for." He paused. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How would you feel about fostering?" That wasn't what I expected. "Fostering?" "Yeah, I volunteer with Desert Hearts Rescue in my off time. We're always desperate for foster homes, especially for larger breeds. People see a big dog and assume they're aggressive or too much work." He gestured to Ghost. "But you clearly know what you're doing. No pressure, but I thought I'd ask. I'd never considered fostering before." My life had been chaos during and after the divorce, and Ghost had been my anchor through all of it. But things had settled down now. I had the space, the time, and apparently I had a busybody neighbor who was going to make my life difficult regardless of what I did. What would it involve? Rick's face lit up. "Usually just temporary housing until we can find permanent homes. We cover vet expenses, food, supplies. You just provide the home and care. Some dogs need a few weeks, some need a few months. You can specify what you're comfortable with: age, size, temperament." "Let me think about it." "Absolutely." Rick pulled out a card. "That's my cell. Call anytime if you have questions or if you want to come by the rescue and see what we do." We walked back through the house, and Rick crouched down to give Ghost one more round of ear scratches. "You're a lucky dog, you know that." Ghost's response was to steal Rick's hat right off his head. "Ghost, drop it," I said, trying not to laugh. Ghost pranced around like he'd won a prize, tail wagging, Rick's hat dangling from his jaws. Rick was full on laughing now. He's got personality, I'll give him that. Rick finally retrieved his hat, now covered in husky drool. "Thanks for being so cooperative, Patrick. Makes my job easier. Thanks for being reasonable." We walked outside just as Sharon emerged from her house, clearly expecting to see Ghost being loaded into the truck. Her face fell when she saw Rick and me chatting like friends. "Officer," she called out, hurrying over. "Did you document the violations?" Rick's expression became professionally neutral. "No violations to document, madam. The dog is healthy and well cared for." "But he was outside in the heat," Sharon protested. "The temperature isn't extreme, and the owner had provided adequate water and shade for limited outdoor time." "There's no violation of any animal welfare laws." Sharon's face flushed red. "This is unacceptable. I know what I saw. That dog was suffering." "Madam, with all due respect, I've been doing this job for 7 years. That dog is not suffering." Rick's voice remained calm but firm. "In fact, he's one of the better cared for animals I've seen." "I want to speak to your supervisor." "That's your right. The number is on the card I left with Mr. Taylor. However, I should inform you that filing false reports is a serious matter." It wastes city resources and takes officers away from actual cases of animal abuse. Sharon sputtered, but Rick tipped his hat and got back in his truck. Before he drove off, he rolled down his window. "Think about that fostering, Patrick." "I will," I called back. Sharon turned on me. "This isn't over, Mr. Taylor. I'll be watching to ensure that animal's welfare. His name is Ghost, and I'd appreciate it if you'd focus your energy on your own property, Sharon." She stormed off, and I went back inside. Ghost was waiting by the door, and I gave him a treat from the jar on the counter. "You're causing me trouble, buddy," I told him. He just tilted his head, those blue eyes innocent. "Yeah, you're real innocent." That evening, I took Ghost for his long walk around the neighborhood. Meadowbrook Estates was one of those planned communities where every house looked similar but slightly different, with manicured lawns and strict landscaping requirements. The streets were wide and clean, lined with young trees that would eventually provide shade but were currently just decorative sticks. We passed other neighbors, most of whom smiled and waved. A few stopped to pet Ghost and chat. Nobody else seemed to have Sharon's vendetta against normal suburban life. When we got back home, I sat on my back patio with a beer and my laptop. Ghost sprawled at my feet, panting happily from the walk. I pulled up Rick's contact information and stared at it for a while. Fostering seemed like a big commitment, even if it was temporary. But I couldn't stop thinking about what Rick had said, about dogs needing homes and people being scared of bigger breeds. Ghost had given me so much companionship and purpose when I needed it most. Maybe I could pay that forward. I sent Rick a text. "Hey, it's Patrick Taylor from earlier. I'd like to learn more about fostering. Can I visit the rescue this weekend?" His response came within minutes. "Absolutely. We're open Saturday 10/4. Come by any time and I'll give you a tour. Fair warning, you might fall in love." Saturday morning arrived with the kind of heat that made stepping outside feel like walking into a hairdryer. I loaded Ghost into my truck, cranked the AC, and headed to Desert Heart's rescue. The facility was on the outskirts of Scottsdale, a large building with outdoor runs and play areas, all shaded with covers and cooled with misters. Rick met us in the parking lot. He was wearing jeans and a rescue t-shirt instead of his uniform, and he grinned when he saw Ghost hop out of the truck. "You brought the escape artist," he said, ruffling Ghost's fur. "Figured he should see where he'd be potentially getting siblings." The rescue was clean and well organized, far from the depressing shelter I'd imagined. Dogs of all sizes barked and wagged from their kennels, but they weren't the desperate, sad sounds of neglected animals. These were dogs saying hello, asking for attention. Rick introduced me to the staff and other volunteers, then walked me through the process. Background check, home visit, training on basic dog behavior and health issues. They'd match foster dogs with appropriate homes based on the foster's experience and the dog's needs. "Want to meet some of our current residents?" Rick asked. He showed me several dogs, each with their own personality and story. A senior Labrador who'd been surrendered when his owner went into hospice care. A young German Shepherd mix who was too energetic for her previous family's apartment. A bonded pair of beagles whose family had lost their house. Then we reached the puppy area and my heart broke. There were 6 puppies in a large play pen about 8 weeks old, tumbling over each other in that way puppies do. They looked like Husky mixes, all fluffy and blue-eyed. "These guys came in 2 weeks ago," Rick explained. "Someone bought a Husky without realizing the female was pregnant. When the puppies were born, they dumped the whole litter at a shelter in Phoenix. We pulled them so they wouldn't be euthanized. One puppy had separated from the group and was sitting by the pen wall, watching us with intense focus. She was smaller than her siblings, with a gray and white coat that looked almost silver and one blue eye and one brown eye. "That's the runt," Rick said. "We call her Luna for now. She's the calm one. While her brothers and sisters are wrestling and causing chaos," she observes. "Smart as a whip." I crouched down and Luna walked right up to the pen wall. She sat down and placed one tiny paw on the barrier, like she was reaching for me. "Can I hold her?" Rick opened the pen and scooped her up, placing her in my arms. Luna snuggled against my chest immediately, making small puppy sounds. Ghost, who'd been investigating smells along the wall, came over to inspect. He sniffed the puppy carefully, then gave her one gentle lick on the head. "Well, that's a good sign," Rick said. Ghost just gave his approval. I looked down at Luna, who was now chewing on my shirt button with tiny teeth. "What happens if she doesn't get fostered?" "She'll stay here until she's adopted. We don't euthanize unless there's severe health or behavioral issues that make a dog dangerous. But puppies usually go fast." "Someone will want her. I'll foster her." The words came out before I'd fully thought them through, but holding this tiny puppy while Ghost stood guard beside me felt right. Rick's smile was huge. "Yeah, you sure? Puppies are a lot of work." "I work from home. I've got the space, and Ghost clearly doesn't mind. Let's do it." The next hour was a blur of paperwork. Rick fast-tracked my background check since I'd already been cleared for the animal control visit. He'd also noted in his report about my home setup, which helped. By noon, I was loading a crate, puppy food, supplies, and Luna into my truck. "Call me if you have any questions or concerns," Rick said. "And bring her in for her next round of shots in 2 weeks. We'll cover the cost." "Thank you, Rick, for everything." "Thank you, man. You're giving her a chance." Ghost and I brought Luna home, and I set up her crate in my bedroom. The rescue recommended crate training for housebreaking and safety. Luna explored every inch of the house, her tiny paws skittering on the tile floors, while Ghost followed her like a furry babysitter. I was taking photos of Luna attempting to climb onto the couch when my doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see Sharon on my doorstep, and my good mood evaporated. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "What can I do for you, Sharon?" "I need to discuss your fence." She held up a folder. "According to the architectural guidelines, all fencing requires HOA approval before installation. You didn't submit the proper forms. The fence is replacing existing fence. It's the same height and similar style. It's a different color. That requires approval." She thrust papers at me. "You'll need to submit these with a $50 application fee, then wait for the board to review at next month's meeting." I took the papers because I didn't want her following me inside. "Fine. I'll submit them. And there's a fine for beginning work without approval." $200. "You've got to be kidding me." "The rules exist for a reason, Mr. Taylor. If we let everyone do whatever they want, property values will plummet." Her eyes narrowed. "What's that noise? Puppy barking?" Luna had discovered her reflection in the glass oven door and was having opinions about it. "You have another dog," Sharon's voice rose. "Section 8 clearly states a maximum of 2 pets per household. I have 1 dog. The puppy is a foster, temporary. That still counts as a household pet." She was already making notes. "That's another violation." "It's not a violation. The rule is designed to prevent hoarding or running a breeding operation. A temporary foster is neither of those things. I'll let the board decide that. Expect notification of a hearing." She marched off, and I closed the door harder than necessary. Ghost whined, sensing my frustration. Luna had abandoned her reflection to chew on Ghost's tail. Despite everything, I couldn't help but smile at the sight. Over the next few days, I settled into a routine with both dogs. Luna was surprisingly easy for a puppy. She picked up housebreaking quickly, using puppy pads and asking to go outside. Ghost was patient with her, even when she used his tail as a toy or tried to eat from his bowl. I worked from my home office while Luna napped in her crate and Ghost lounged under my desk. Every few hours I'd take breaks to play with them in the backyard, and Luna's confidence grew daily. She went from tentative exploration to full-speed puppy zoomies. The HOA letter arrived on Thursday. I was summoned to appear before the board the following Tuesday to answer for my violations: unapproved fence installation and exceeding the pet limit. There was a formal tone to the letter that made it sound like I'd committed crimes instead of minor suburban infractions. I called my real estate agent, Marcus, who'd sold me the house. "HOA trouble already," he said sympathetically. "Let me guess, Sharon Pemberton. How'd you know? She's infamous. Runs the HOA like it's her personal fiefdom. Most of the other board members just go along with her because it's easier than fighting." "What are my options?" "Show up to the hearing, present your case, bring documentation. If you can prove the foster dog is temporary and not a permanent pet, they might waive that violation." The fence thing is trickier. Technically, they're right that you need approval even for replacement. So I pay the fine and submit the paperwork. Probably your best bet. Fighting it will cost more in the long run, even if you're right. I hated that answer, but it was practical. Still, something about Sharon's attitude made me want to push back. Tuesday evening, I left Ghost and Luna at home and walked to the community center where HOA meetings were held. The building was generic suburban architecture, with a multi-purpose room that smelled like old coffee and air freshener. Sharon sat at a folding table with 4 other board members. I recognized 2 of them from around the neighborhood, but we'd never spoken. Sharon had papers spread in front of her, and that smug expression I was learning to hate. "Mr. Taylor, thank you for attending." Her tone suggested I'd had a choice. "We're here to address multiple violations of community standards." One of the other board members, an older man with gray hair, cleared his throat. "Let's keep this civil, Sharon. Mr. Taylor, I'm Robert Chen, board treasurer. We want to hear your side." I appreciated that. The fence is replacing existing fence with a better quality version. I wasn't aware I needed approval for a replacement. I'm happy to submit the paperwork and pay any legitimate fees, but a $200 fine for an honest mistake seems excessive. "Ignorance of the rules isn't an excuse," Sharon said. "I'm not claiming it is. I'm asking for reasonableness." I pulled out photos on my phone. The new fence is an improvement. It's sturdier, safer, and honestly looks better than the chain link that was there. A woman on the board, maybe in her 50s with kind eyes, leaned forward. "I'm Patricia Donnelly. Can we see the photos?" I passed my phone around. The board members looked at the before and after shots, and I could see some of them nodding approvingly. "Looks good to me," Robert said. "I move we waive the fine and approve the fence retroactively, provided the proper paperwork is submitted within 2 weeks." "Second," Patricia said. Sharon's jaw tightened. "We still have the matter of the illegal second dog." "It's not an illegal second dog. It's a foster dog, temporary housing through Desert Hearts Rescue." I pulled out the fostering agreement and Luna's paperwork. "I'm providing care until she's adopted. It's not permanent and it's not a pet I'm keeping." "The rules say 2 pets maximum," Sharon insisted. "A foster counts." "Does it though?" Robert took the paperwork and read through it. "This isn't ownership, it's more like pet sitting. Do we count it as a violation if someone watches a friend's dog for a week?" "That's different," Sharon said. "How?" Patricia asked. "Mr. Taylor isn't keeping the puppy permanently. He's helping a rescue organization. That seems like community service, which we're supposed to encourage." The other 2 board members who hadn't spoken yet both nodded. One of them, a younger guy who looked uncomfortable with the whole proceeding, spoke up. "My cousin fosters cats. It's a good thing. I don't think we should penalize it. Sharon's face flushed red. This is about maintaining standards. If we make exceptions for everyone who has a sob story, it's not a sob story, I interrupted. It's a puppy who needed a temporary home. Animal control actually suggested I foster because I have experience with dogs and a good setup. Officer Martinez can verify that if needed. Oh, Rick Martinez, Patricia smiled. He spoke at my daughter's school about responsible pet ownership. Wonderful young man. Sharon was outvoted and she knew it. The board officially waived my fence fine pending proper paperwork submission, and declared that temporary fostering didn't count toward the pet limit as long as I maintained documentation proving the arrangement. I left the meeting feeling vindicated but also aware I'd made an enemy. Sharon's expression as I'd walked out promised this wasn't over. The next week passed peacefully. Luna grew bigger and more confident. She and Ghost played together constantly, and Ghost was teaching her things I hadn't even tried to train yet. She'd learned to sit and come on command just by watching Ghost respond to my directions. I took photos and videos, posting updates to the rescue's social media as Rick had requested. Luna was photogenic, and the posts got lots of attention. Several people had already inquired about adopting her. That should have made me happy. It meant she'd find a good home. Instead, I felt a weird reluctance I didn't want to examine too closely. On Friday, Rick called. "Hey Patrick, got some news about Luna. There's a family interested in meeting her. They've adopted from us before, great people, have a fenced yard and another dog for her to play with. They want to come by tomorrow if that works for you." Tomorrow? My stomach dropped. I know it's fast. If you need more time, no, it's fine. She needs a permanent home. What time? We arranged for 11 in the morning. After I hung up, I sat on the couch while Ghost and Luna wrestled over a rope toy. Luna was still so small, barely 12 pounds, but she had personality for days. The thought of her leaving made the house feel emptier already. Don't get attached, I told myself. That's not the point of fostering. Ghost looked up at me and whined. Even he knew I was lying. Saturday morning I cleaned obsessively, which was stupid because the family wasn't judging my housekeeping. Luna sensed something was different and stuck close to me, her tiny shadow following me from room to room. Rick arrived first, then a couple in their 30s with a 7-year-old daughter. The Hendersons. They seemed nice, asking all the right questions about Luna's temperament, health, and habits. Their daughter, Emma, sat on the floor immediately and Luna bounded over to investigate. "She's so pretty," Emma breathed, carefully petting Luna. "Can she do tricks?" "She knows sit and come," I said. "She's still learning, but she's smart. Picks things up quickly." We moved to the backyard so Luna and Emma could play while the adults talked. Ghost joined them, ever the gentle guardian. Watching Emma throw a ball that Luna couldn't quite catch yet, seeing Luna's joy at having a kid to play with, I knew this was a good match. "She's wonderful," Mrs. Henderson said. "We lost our dog last year to cancer. Emma's been asking for a puppy, and when we saw Luna's photos, we knew she was the one." "She's lucky to have found you," I said, meaning it despite the ache in my chest. The adoption paperwork took 15 minutes. Rick had brought everything needed, and the Hendersons had already been approved. They'd brought a new collar and leash, a pink one with hearts that Emma had picked out. When it was time for Luna to leave, Emma scooped her up carefully. Luna licked her face, making Emma giggle. They walked to their car, Luna looking back at me once with those mismatched eyes. "You okay?" Rick asked quietly. "Yeah, just harder than I expected." "That means you're doing it right. If it was easy to say goodbye, it'd mean you didn't care." He clapped my shoulder. "You gave her a great start. The Hendersons will give her a great life. That's what matters." After they left, Ghost searched the house for Luna. He checked her crate, her food bowl, all her favorite spots. When he didn't find her, he lay down by the door with a heavy sigh. I know, buddy. I miss her too. The house felt too quiet that night. I tried to work, but I kept expecting to hear puppy sounds or see Luna attacking Ghost's tail. Ghost was subdued too, not interested in his usual evening walk. Sunday morning, I woke to my phone ringing. Rick's name on the screen sent my heart racing. Is Luna okay? She's fine, everything's fine, Rick said quickly. But I'm calling because we have a situation. Remember Luna's litter mates, the other 5 puppies? Yeah, the family that was supposed to take 2 of them backed out last minute. We're overcrowded at the rescue, and these puppies need foster homes desperately. I know you just said goodbye to Luna, and I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate, but I'll take them. What? You don't even know how many I'm asking for. Doesn't matter. How many do you need placed? 2, maybe 3 if you have room. Patrick, are you sure? Multiple puppies are exponentially more work than one. I looked at Ghost, who'd perked up at my excited tone. We've got room and time, and honestly, this house is too quiet without puppy chaos. You're a lifesaver. Can I bring them by this afternoon? 3 hours later, Rick's truck pulled up with 3 puppy carriers. Ghost and I met him outside, and the barking from the carriers was intense. This is Thor, Loki, and Freya, Rick said, opening the carriers. 3 fur balls tumbled out, immediately starting to wrestle. All boys, including Freya, by the way. The volunteer who named him has a sense of humor. They looked like Luna but with different markings. Thor was the biggest, almost solid gray with white paws. Loki had a black and white coat with a white mask. Freya was smaller, reddish-brown and white with bright blue eyes. Ghost sniffed each puppy carefully, his tail wagging. The puppies, after initial wariness, decided Ghost was a giant toy and attacked. Ghost let them climb on him, mouth at his ears and tug on his tail. He was in heaven. I owe you big time, Rick said, helping me carry supplies inside. These guys will probably be with you 4 to 6 weeks. They need their full vaccination series before they can be adopted. Whatever they need. I was already in love, watching Ghost play with his new charges. That evening, I set up 3 crates in my bedroom, established feeding stations, and puppy-proofed everything Luna had taught me to puppy-proof plus some extras because 3 puppies find trouble faster than 1. By bedtime, I was exhausted but happy. Monday morning, I was on a video call for work when I heard the doorbell. I muted my microphone and went to check, leaving the puppies playing in their pen and Ghost supervising. Sharon stood on my doorstep with another woman I didn't recognize, this one holding a clipboard. Mr. Taylor, this is Brenda Kowalski, the HOA compliance officer. Sharon's smile was predatory. We're here for a property inspection. I didn't receive notice of an inspection. Per Section 23 of the bylaws, the board can conduct inspections with 24 hours notice for suspected violations. We sent an email yesterday. I hadn't checked my email. That was intentional on Sharon's part, catching me off guard. I'm working. Can this wait? No, it cannot. This will only take a few minutes. I didn't want to let them in, but refusing would make things worse. Fine, but make it quick. The moment I opened the door, the puppy barking started. Sharon's expression transformed to triumph. What is that noise, Mr. Taylor? Foster puppies. Temporary, just like Luna was. Multiple puppies. Brenda made notes. How many animals are currently residing in this home? 1 dog, 3 foster puppies. Sharon pulled out her phone, opening to the HOA bylaws. The board ruled that 1 foster was acceptable. You now have 3. That's 4 dogs in this house. The limit is 2 pets. They're not pets, they're fosters, temporary, and the board said fostering didn't count toward the limit. 1 foster, Sharon repeated. 1. You're now running an unlicensed kennel operation in a residential neighborhood. That's absurd. I'm helping a rescue organization. Brenda cleared her throat. Mr. Taylor, I need to see the animals and their living conditions. I led them inside, furious but trying to stay calm. Ghost met us in the living room and the puppies were visible in their pen, tumbling over each other. The setup was clean, organized, and safe. They look healthy, Brenda admitted, making notes. The conditions aren't concerning from a welfare standpoint. But from a community standard standpoint, this is unacceptable, Sharon jumped in. The noise, the potential damage to property values, the violation of our pet policy. I'll need to present this to the board, Brenda said. She seemed uncomfortable, caught between doing her job and recognizing Sharon was being unreasonable. We'll schedule another hearing. After they left, I immediately called Rick. We have a problem. I explained the situation, and Rick swore creatively. This is my fault. I should have cleared the multiple fosters with you first, made sure it wouldn't cause issues. It's not your fault. Sharon has nothing better to do than harass her neighbors. I watched Ghost play with the puppies. What are my options? I can try to place them with other fosters, but honestly, we're maxed out. These guys would have to go back to the main facility and we're overcrowded there too. He paused. There might be another option. Let me make some calls. The second HOA hearing was scheduled for Friday evening. This time, Rick came with me, wearing his animal control uniform and bringing official documentation about the foster program. Sharon's face when she saw Rick was priceless. Officer Martinez. I didn't realize this was an official animal control matter. Miss Pemberton. Rick's tone was professional but cool. Mr. Taylor asked me to attend as a character witness and to provide information about the foster program. We took our seats and the board convened. Robert Chen looked tired, like he was sick of these meetings. Patricia Donnelly smiled at Rick warmly. The other members looked neutral. Sharon wasted no time. Mr. Taylor is violating our pet policy by housing 4 dogs. This is clearly excessive and not what the board approved during his last hearing. The board approved fostering, I countered. There was no limit placed on the number of foster animals, because we assumed reasonable numbers. 1, maybe 2, not 3 additional puppies. Rick stood. If I may address the board, Desert Hearts Rescue is a licensed 501c3 nonprofit organization. Our foster program is crucial to our mission of saving animals from high-kill shelters. Mr. Taylor volunteered to help after I met him during a call to this neighborhood. He pulled out a folder and distributed copies of documents to each board member. These papers outline the foster program, Mr. Taylor's agreement, and most importantly, the temporary nature of these placements. The puppies will be with him for 4 to 6 weeks maximum, until they complete their vaccinations and can be adopted. 6 weeks of excessive noise and disruption, Sharon said. Have there been noise complaints from other neighbors? Patricia asked. Silence. Sharon clearly hadn't thought to manufacture any. Robert flipped through Rick's documents. This all looks legitimate. Mr. Taylor isn't running a kennel or breeding operation. He's providing temporary care for homeless puppies. It sets a bad precedent, Sharon insisted. What's to stop other residents from bringing in multiple animals and claiming they're fosters? The fact that fostering requires background checks, home inspections, and ongoing supervision from the rescue organization, Rick said. It's not something someone can fake, and frankly, most people wouldn't want to take on the work. Mr. Taylor is going above and beyond to help animals in need. The young board member spoke up. I move we amend our previous ruling to allow multiple foster animals on a temporary basis, provided the resident maintains proper documentation, and the arrangement is through a licensed rescue organization. Second, Patricia said immediately. Sharon opened her mouth to argue, but Robert cut her off. All in favor. 4 hands went up. Only Sharon stayed down. Motion passes. Mr. Taylor, you're in compliance. Is there any other business? Robert was already gathering his papers, clearly done with Sharon's vendetta. Yes, actually, Rick said. There's one more matter to address. Miss Pemberton, you've called animal control 3 times in the past month regarding Mr. Taylor's dog. Each time the calls were unfounded. You also called twice before about other neighborhood animals, also unfounded. Sharon's expression became wary. I was concerned about animal welfare. False reporting to animal control is a misdemeanor under Arizona Revised Statutes Section 13-2507.01. Rick's voice was hard now. It wastes city resources and prevents officers from responding to actual emergencies. I've documented each call and my findings. If you continue making unfounded reports, I will refer the matter to the prosecutor's office. The room went silent. Sharon's face cycled through several colors. Officer Martinez, we appreciate you bringing this to our attention, Robert said. Sharon, consider this a warning. The board doesn't condone harassment of residents, even under the guise of rule enforcement. Sharon stood abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. I'm trying to maintain standards and you're all turning against me. We're trying to be reasonable, Patricia said gently. You take things too far sometimes. Unbelievable. Sharon grabbed her things and stormed out. After the meeting, Rick and I walked back to my house. The evening had cooled to merely warm instead of blazing, and the neighborhood was quiet. Thanks for having my back in there, I said. Thanks for fostering. You're doing a good thing, Patrick, he grinned. Plus, it's satisfying to shut down someone who abuses the system. Sharon's been a problem for a while. We reached my house where Ghost greeted us at the door, 3 puppies tumbling around his legs. Rick crouched down to pet them, and they swarmed him with puppy enthusiasm. They're getting big, he observed. Another few weeks and they'll be ready for adoption. Already have interested families. Yeah, actually. Social media posts are getting tons of attention. These guys will find homes easily. He stood, brushing puppy fur off his uniform. You ever think about adopting one yourself? I can't take Ghost and 3 puppies. I meant just one. Keep one, foster the others. I looked at the puppies. Thor was chewing on Ghost's ear. Loki was attacking a toy twice his size. Freya sat slightly apart, watching everything with intelligent eyes just like Luna had. Freya, I said, if I kept one, it'd be him. Yeah, what makes you pick Freya? Same reason I bonded with Luna. He's observant, smart, and Ghost really likes him. As if to prove my point, Ghost left Thor and Loki to lay down next to Freya. The puppy immediately curled up against Ghost's side. Rick smiled. Fill out adoption papers, he's yours. Just like that. Just like that. You've more than proven you're a great dog owner. Besides, I think Freya already decided you're his person. Over the next 4 weeks, life settled into organized chaos. Freya, now officially mine, stayed close to me while I fostered Thor and Loki. Applications came in for both, and Rick carefully vetted each one. Thor went to a family in Temp with 3 kids who wanted a high-energy dog for hiking and outdoor adventures. He was perfect for them, built sturdy and already showing signs of the confident personality they wanted. Loki got adopted by a retired veteran who specifically wanted a Husky and had experience with the breed. He came to meet Loki 3 times before finalizing the adoption, wanting to make sure they were a good match. Watching them together, the way Loki immediately calmed with this quiet man, I knew it was right. The day Loki left was bittersweet. I'd gotten better at goodbyes, but it still hurt. Ghost and Freya searched the house that evening, and I let them have extra treats as comfort. Sharon had been suspiciously quiet since the board meeting. I'd see her occasionally, watching from her window or checking her mailbox when I walked the dogs, but she kept her distance. That should have been my warning something was coming. It was a Tuesday morning in October when I got the email. The subject line read, "Notice of violation, immediate action required." According to the HOA, my lawn wasn't meeting standards. Specifically, there were brown patches indicating neglect and insufficient watering. The email included photos of my yard, clearly taken from the street, with circles drawn around any area that wasn't perfect green. It was Arizona in October. After a summer where temperatures regularly hit 110 degrees, everyone's lawn had brown patches. The violation notice demanded I restore my lawn to appropriate standards within 30 days or face a fine of $500, then $100 per week, until compliance was achieved. I walked outside and examined my yard. Yes, there were some brown areas, but it wasn't worse than any other house on the street. I walked the neighborhood taking photos. Every single lawn had similar issues. I documented everything and sent a response to the HOA board, CCing everyone including Sharon. I pointed out the double standard and attached comparison photos of neighboring properties. The response came from Sharon directly. "Other properties will be assessed accordingly. Your notice stands." "Of course it does," I muttered. I called a landscaping company and got quotes for lawn renovation. The cheapest option was $1,200 for grass that would likely die again next summer because Scottsdale wasn't meant for green lawns. Ghost and Freya sensed my mood and stayed close. Freya had grown significantly in the past month, his paws too big for his body, promising a large adult size. He followed Ghost everywhere, mimicking his behavior, and had picked up basic commands easily. My phone rang. "Marcus, my real estate agent." "Patrick, I heard through the grapevine about your lawn violation. News travels fast. Sharon's on a warpath. She's apparently submitting violations for half the street. Because I fought back about the fostering." "Exactly. Look, I have a friend who's a lawyer, specializes in HOA disputes. Want me to connect you?" I didn't want to spend money on lawyers, but this was getting out of hand. "Yeah, send me his information." The lawyer's name was David Preston. His office was in downtown Scottsdale, and I met with him that Friday. David was probably 50, with graying hair and a no-nonsense attitude. "HOAs are tricky," he said after I'd explained everything. "They have a lot of power, but that power isn't unlimited. Selective enforcement, which is what's happening here, is actually illegal in Arizona. So what can I do?" "Document everything. Every violation notice you receive, every interaction with Sharon or the board. Take photos showing other properties have similar issues. If they fine you, don't pay immediately. Request a formal hearing and challenge the selective enforcement." "Will that work?" "Depends on the board. If they're reasonable, they'll back off. If Sharon has too much influence, it might require formal legal action." He quoted me a retainer fee that made me wince. Let me think about it. I left feeling more stressed than when I'd arrived. Legal battles were expensive and time-consuming, and there was no guarantee of success. That weekend, I was working in my yard when my neighbor from 2 houses down stopped by. His name was Jerome Mitchell, a black man in his 60s who'd lived in Meadowbrook Estates since the development was built. "Heard Sharon's giving you trouble," Jerome said, getting straight to the point. "She's giving everyone trouble, apparently. Not everyone, just people she doesn't like." Jerome looked at my lawn. "You know why your grass is dying? Because it's October in Arizona," he laughed. "That, and because the developer used the cheapest sod possible. Stuff barely survives one summer, let alone multiple. Half the neighborhood replaced their lawns with desert landscaping years ago. The HOA allows that. They didn't want to, but enough people pushed back that they created an exemption. Desert landscaping that meets certain aesthetic standards is acceptable. He pulled out his phone and showed me photos. This is what I did. Costs about the same as replacing sod, but it's permanent and way less maintenance. The photos showed beautiful arrangements of native plants, decorative rocks, and artificial turf accents. It looked better than struggling grass. Sharon approved this. Sharon fought it tooth and nail, but she was outvoted. The rules are in the bylaws now. Section 16, subsection D. He forwarded me the photos. I've got the landscaper's information if you want it. This felt like a solution. I thanked Jerome and immediately started researching desert landscaping options. Monday morning, I submitted a formal application to the HOA for landscape modification, including detailed plans, photos of examples, and references to the bylaw that allowed it. The application fee was $75, which was annoying but cheaper than fighting a violation. Sharon's response came within hours. Application denied. Proposed changes do not meet aesthetic standards. She didn't specify which standards or how my proposal failed to meet them. I forwarded the denial to the entire board with a simple question. Can someone please explain the specific deficiencies in my application? Patricia Donnelly responded first. I don't see any deficiencies. The plan looks similar to several other approved modifications. I vote to approve. Robert Chen agreed. Motion to approve. This seems like another case of selective enforcement. Sharon fired back emails arguing about standards and property values, but within 24 hours, the board had voted 4-1 to approve my landscaping plan. Sharon was the only dissenting vote. I hired Jerome's landscaper, a guy named Carlos who did amazing work. He started the following week, removing the struggling grass and installing a design that incorporated native desert plants, decorative rocks in sunset colors, and sections of high-quality artificial turf that looked real but required zero water. The transformation took a week. When it was done, my house looked like it belonged in a magazine. Neighbors stopped to compliment it. Several asked for Carlos's information. Sharon said nothing, but I'd catch her glaring at my yard from her window. Things were quiet for a few weeks. I focused on work and training Freya, who was growing into a beautiful dog. He and Ghost were inseparable, and having 2 Huskies meant double the personality and double the chaos. Then November arrived, and with it, the holidays. The HOA sent an email outlining holiday decoration guidelines. Maximum number of light strands, approved color schemes, prohibited inflatable decorations, specific dates when decorations could be displayed. It was excessive, but I didn't plan to go crazy with decorations anyway. A simple string of lights and a wreath seemed appropriate. What I didn't expect was Sharon going full neighborhood patrol with a measuring tape. My next-door neighbor, a young couple named the Parkers, put up Christmas lights the day after Thanksgiving. They were tasteful, white lights along the roofline and around their front windows. 2 days later, they received a violation notice because their lights extended 3 inches beyond the approved roofline boundary. Another neighbor got cited because his wreath was 17 inches in diameter instead of the maximum 16 inches. Someone else got a violation for displaying decorations on November 26th instead of the allowed start date of November 27th. It was insane. And it was all Sharon, walking the neighborhood with her tape measure and camera, documenting every tiny deviation from the rules. The neighborhood had enough. Jerome organized a meeting at his house, inviting everyone who'd received violation notices. 15 families showed up. "This has to stop," Jerome said. "Sharon is abusing her position and making everyone miserable." "Can we remove her from the board?" someone asked. "Board positions are elected annually," Jerome explained. "Next election is in January, but we'd need someone willing to run against her and we'd need votes." "I'll run," Patricia Donnelly said. She'd come to the meeting as a concerned resident, not as a board member. "I'm sick of the pettiness. We should be building community, not measuring wreaths." "I'll run too," another neighbor offered. "For treasurer, Robert's planning to step down anyway, said he's tired of the drama." We spent the next hour organizing. We'd campaign for new board members, get people to show up for the January election, and end Sharon's reign of HOA terror. Sharon got wind of our plans, of course. The neighborhood wasn't big enough for secrets. Her response was to double down, sending out violation notices for increasingly ridiculous things. Someone's mailbox was faded and decreasing property values. Another person's car was parked 6 inches over the driveway boundary onto the grass. A family got cited because their trash cans were visible from the street for approximately 4 minutes longer than the allowed time on collection day. But the worst was what she did to the Parkers. The Parkers had a 10-year-old daughter, Sophie, who'd been diagnosed with leukemia the previous year. She was in remission but still going through treatments. The neighborhood had rallied around the family, and Sophie loved Christmas. The Parkers had adjusted their lights after the first violation, making sure everything was within the rules. Their display was beautiful but completely compliant. Sharon found a different angle to attack. She submitted a complaint to the city claiming the lights were excessively bright and constituted light pollution. The city sent an inspector who determined the lights were well within normal parameters. But the stress of dealing with another complaint, another inspection while managing Sophie's health, broke the Parkers. I found Mrs. Parker crying in her driveway after the inspection. "I don't understand why she hates us," she sobbed. "Sophie just wanted pretty lights, that's all. Just some lights to feel normal during treatment." "This isn't about you," I said gently. "Sharon's mad at me and Jerome and everyone who pushed back against her. She's lashing out at anyone she can hurt. It's working. Tom wants to sell the house. He says it's not worth the stress." That's when I knew Sharon had gone too far. Making my life difficult was one thing. Driving a family with a sick child out of their home was something else entirely. I called Rick. "How does someone file a harassment complaint? Against who?" I explained everything, including the Parker situation. Rick was quiet for a long moment. "That's beyond HOA issues. That's targeted harassment. You could file a police report, get a restraining order potentially." "Would it work?" "Depends on how much evidence you have. You'd need to show a pattern of behavior, prove it's deliberate and causing harm." I thought about it. What if multiple people filed reports? The whole neighborhood has evidence. That would be stronger. Shows a pattern affecting multiple people, not just one dispute. I called Jerome and explained. He loved the idea. "Let's do it. Get everyone together, compile all the documentation, and go to the police as a group." We organized for the following week. 12 families agreed to participate, each bringing violation notices, emails, photos, and documentation of Sharon's harassment. The Scottsdale Police Department wasn't sure what to do with us at first. Neighborhood disputes weren't typically their jurisdiction. But the desk sergeant listened to our story and called over a detective. Detective Sarah Walsh was in her 40s, professional and thorough. She interviewed each family separately, reviewed our documentation, and took notes. "This is unusual," she admitted. HOA disputes don't usually rise to criminal harassment, but the volume and targeting here is concerning, especially regarding the family with the ill child. "Can you do anything?" Jerome asked. "I can investigate and potentially charge her with harassment if the evidence supports it." Arizona's harassment statute covers behavior that serves no legitimate purpose other than to harass, annoy, or alarm. Some of these complaints definitely fit that description. What do we need to do? Keep documenting everything. Don't engage with her directly. If she contacts you, document it but don't respond. Let me compile the evidence and talk to the prosecutor's office. It wasn't the immediate solution we'd hoped for, but it was something. December continued, and Sharon seemed unaware of the investigation. She kept issuing violations, kept patrolling the neighborhood, kept making life difficult. Then something unexpected happened. Robert Chen submitted his resignation from the board, effective immediately, citing health concerns. That left an empty treasurer position until the January election. Per the bylaws, the board could appoint an interim treasurer or hold a special election. Sharon pushed for appointment, wanting to install one of her allies, but Patricia and the other 2 board members insisted on a vote. Jerome ran for the interim position. The special election was held at an emergency board meeting, and because enough neighbors showed up to vote, Jerome won. Suddenly, Sharon only controlled 2 of the 5 board positions. The balance of power had shifted. Jerome's first act as interim treasurer was to review the HOA's finances. What he found was alarming. The HOA had been collecting annual dues from every household, plus violation fines and application fees. Those funds were supposed to cover community maintenance, insurance, and reserves for major repairs. But the accounts didn't add up. Money was missing. Not huge amounts, but thousands of dollars that couldn't be accounted for. Jerome brought his findings to the full board. Sharon's face went white when she saw the spreadsheets. "There must be an accounting error," she said. "I'm a retired accountant," Jerome said. "These aren't errors. These are unauthorized expenditures without board approval." "I had approval. Robert approved everything." "Robert's signature isn't on these forms. Yours is." The room went silent. Patricia looked shocked. The other board members looked confused. "What did you spend the money on, Sharon?" Jerome's voice was calm but firm. "Community expenses. Things we needed." "Like what?" Sharon couldn't answer, or wouldn't. "I'm recommending we hire an independent auditor," Jerome said. "And I'm recommending we suspend Sharon from the board pending the audit results." "You can't do that," Sharon said. "Actually, per the bylaws, the board can suspend a member for potential financial impropriety pending investigation. It requires a majority vote." Jerome looked at the other members. "I move to suspend Sharon Pemberton and authorize an independent audit." Patricia seconded immediately. The vote was 4-1, with Sharon obviously voting against. Sharon stood, shaking. "This is a witch hunt. You're all ganging up on me because I tried to maintain standards." "We're following the rules," Patricia said quietly. "The same rules you've used to make everyone's lives miserable." Sharon stormed out, and within days, the neighborhood knew about the missing money. Detective Walsh heard about it too and added potential embezzlement to her investigation. The audit took 3 weeks. The results were damning. Sharon had been using HOA funds for personal expenses for nearly 2 years. Nothing huge, just small amounts here and there. Coffee shops, restaurants, gas, even personal shopping. She'd covered it by inflating community expense reports and pocketing the difference. Total amount: just over $23,000. The board voted unanimously to remove Sharon from her position and pursue criminal charges. Detective Walsh arrested Sharon for embezzlement. which was a Class 4 felony in Arizona for amounts over $3,000. The day Sharon was arrested, I was walking Ghost and Freya around the neighborhood. I saw the police car pull up to her house, saw Sharon led out in handcuffs, saw her husband's shocked face in the doorway. I didn't feel triumphant, just sad that it had come to this. The neighborhood gossip mill went into overdrive. Sharon's husband filed for divorce within weeks. The house went up for sale. People who'd been afraid of Sharon's violations suddenly felt free to express themselves. Christmas decorations went up with enthusiasm. The Parkers created an elaborate display with Sophie helping, her smile bright despite her pale, thin appearance from treatment. The January board elections brought in new members, including Patricia as president and Jerome as permanent treasurer. Their first action was to revamp the HOA bylaws, making them less restrictive and more focused on actual community improvement rather than petty rule enforcement. I continued fostering dogs through Desert Heart's rescue. After Thor and Loki, I fostered 3 more dogs over the next several months. An elderly golden retriever recovering from surgery, a young pit bull mix who needed socialization, and another husky who'd been surrendered by owners who didn't understand the breed's needs. Each placement was temporary. Each goodbye was hard, but seeing dogs find forever homes made it worthwhile. Ghost and Freya thrived together. Freya grew into a gorgeous dog, almost as big as Ghost, with that same reddish-brown and white coat he'd had as a puppy. They were best friends, doing everything together, from wrestling in the backyard to napping in synchronized positions on the couch. Rick became a good friend. We'd grab beers after he delivered or picked up foster dogs, talking about rescue work and life in general. He was passionate about animal welfare, and his enthusiasm was infectious. "You ever think about volunteering beyond fostering?" he asked one evening in March. "Like what?" "We need help with adoption events, fundraising, home visits for potential adopters. You've got experience now. You'd be great at assessing if someone's really ready for a dog." I thought about it. My work schedule was flexible, and I'd found I genuinely loved being involved with the rescue. Yeah, I'd like that. So I became more involved. I spent Saturdays at adoption events, helping families meet dogs and answering questions. I did home visits, checking if environments were safe and appropriate. I helped with fundraising campaigns. The Meadowbrook Estates community transformed too. Without Sharon's iron grip, neighbors became friendlier. We organized block parties, started a community garden, created a neighborhood watch that actually focused on safety instead of bylaw enforcement. The Parkers stayed. Sophie's health improved, and by summer she was declared in full remission. She'd stop by my house sometimes to play with Ghost and Freya, and seeing her laugh while 2 giant huskies gently played tug-of-war with her brought me more joy than I could express. Sharon's legal case proceeded slowly. She eventually pleaded guilty to embezzlement and was sentenced to probation, community service, and full restitution to the HOA. Her husband divorced her, and she moved out of state to live with relatives. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she blamed everyone else for her problems, never accepting responsibility. That didn't surprise me. One Saturday in August, almost a year after the animal control incident that started everything, Rick called. "Got someone here who wants to see you." "Who? Just come to the rescue, you'll see." I loaded Ghost and Freya into my truck and headed over. Rick met me in the parking lot with a huge grin. "Close your eyes," he said. "Really? Just do it." I closed my eyes and Rick led me inside. I heard footsteps, then a familiar sound, puppy barking with an unmistakable husky voice. "Okay, open." I opened my eyes to see Emma Henderson, now a year older, holding a leash, At the end of the leash was Luna, except she wasn't tiny anymore. She'd grown into a beautiful young dog, still smaller than Ghost and Freya but perfectly proportioned with that gorgeous silver-gray coat and mismatched eyes. "Patrick!" Emma ran over and hugged me, Luna bounding along beside her. "Look how big Luna got." Luna remembered me. She jumped up, putting her paws on my chest, licking my face enthusiastically. Ghost and Freya crowded around, and Luna immediately started playing with them like no time had passed. "She's beautiful," I said, crouching down to pet her properly. "How's she doing?" "She's perfect, Mrs. Henderson said, joining us. "Best dog we could have asked for. Emma wanted to come by and show you how she turned out." We spent an hour at the rescue, watching the 3 Huskies play, catching up with the Hendersons, and touring the new facility expansion that recent fundraising had enabled. Luna was happy, healthy, and clearly loved. That was all I could have hoped for. After they left, Rick and I sat on a bench watching volunteers clean kennels and care for the current residents. "You did good," Rick said. "Luna, Ghost, Freya, all the fosters you've taken. You made a real difference." "I just provided temporary homes. You provided love, safety, and a chance. That's everything." I looked at Ghost and Freya, who were sprawled in the shade, exhausted from playing. "They saved me as much as I saved them. After my divorce, I was lost. Ghost gave me purpose. Fostering gave me community." That's usually how it works. We think we're rescuing them, but really, they're rescuing us. That evening, I sat on my back patio with a beer, both dogs at my feet, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. My phone buzzed with a message from the new HOA board, asking if I'd be interested in joining the welcoming committee for new residents. I smiled. A year ago, I'd been fighting with the HOA just to live my life. Now they wanted my involvement in building community. Life had a funny way of working out, I texted back. "I'd love to. Thanks for thinking of me." Ghost lifted his head, those blue eyes meeting mine, and I swear he looked satisfied. Freya yawned, showing all his teeth, then went back to sleep. My phone buzzed again. "Rick, got a situation. Family of 4 beagles needs emergency fostering after owner died. I know it's more than usual, but any chance?" I looked at my spacious backyard, my quiet house, my 2 dogs who'd both come to me through rescue work. I typed back, "Bring them over. We've got room." Because that's what you do. You make room, you help where you can. You take temporary chaos and turn it into permanent love. The doorbell rang an hour later. Rick stood there with 4 carriers, grinning apologetically. "You're a lifesaver." That's what friends are for. We brought the beagles inside, and chaos erupted immediately. 4 beagles meeting 2 huskies created a symphony of barking, howling, and excited dog sounds. But within 10 minutes, they'd sorted themselves out, the pack dynamics established through play and sniffing. Ghost looked at me with an expression that clearly said, "Really?" But his tail was wagging. Freya was in heaven, playing with the smallest beagle like they'd known each other forever. Rick left with promises to bring supplies in the morning. I surveyed my living room, now filled with 6 dogs of various sizes. All settling in like this was completely normal. "This is my life now," I said to no one in particular. Ghost barked once, agreeing, and honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. The house that had felt too empty after my divorce, that had been a source of stress during Sharon's HOA reign, was now filled with purpose, joy, and unconditional love. I'd found my community, both human and canine. I'd learned that standing up for what's right sometimes means fighting battles you didn't choose, but those battles can lead to unexpected friendships and positive change. Sharon had called animal control on my husky, trying to cause trouble. Instead, the officer left with adoption papers for a puppy, and that single act changed everything. It gave me purpose beyond work and solitude. It connected me with Rick and the rescue. It led to standing up against HOA abuse and helping reform a community. One small act of kindness, one decision to foster a puppy, had rippled outward in ways I never could have predicted. I grabbed my phone and took a photo of all 6 dogs piled together on my living room floor, a mass of fur and contentment. I posted it to the Desert Hearts Rescue social media with a caption: "Family of 4 beagles joining the pack temporarily. Always room for more love." The comments and likes started rolling in immediately, people celebrating the foster family, sharing the post, spreading awareness about rescue work. My phone rang. "Jerome, saw your post. You're insane, you know that, probably." "What's up?" Patricia and I were talking. "We want to use some of the recovered HOA funds with neighborhood approval to create a community dog park. Nothing fancy, just a fenced area where people can let their dogs play safely. Thought you might have ideas about what we'd need." I looked at my pack of dogs and smiled. "I have lots of ideas. Let's do it. Neighborhood meeting next week to discuss it. Bring your zoo." After we hung up, I felt that same contentment I'd felt earlier. This was home. Not just the house, but the community, the purpose, the connections. Ghost padded over and put his head in my lap. I scratched behind his ears and he sighed contentedly. "Thanks, buddy," I whispered, "for everything." He looked up at me with those intelligent blue eyes and I knew he understood. Freya joined us, squeezing in for attention. Then one of the beagles. Then another. Soon I was buried in dogs, all seeking affection, all trusting me to care for them. It was perfect. The next morning, I woke to the sound of 6 dogs needing breakfast. I stumbled to the kitchen, got everyone fed, and let them out into the backyard. The beagles explored every inch with their noses while Ghost and Freya supervised from the shade. My workday was punctuated by puppy breaks and walks and cleaning up after 6 dogs instead of 2. It was exhausting and chaotic and absolutely wonderful. Evening brought Rick with supplies and an update on potential adopters for the beagles. He'd already had several inquiries, including one family interested in adopting all 4 together so they wouldn't be separated. "That would be ideal," I said. "They're clearly bonded." "Yeah, happens sometimes with groups like this. We'll see if the family works out." Over the next few weeks, life continued in its beautiful chaos. The beagles adjusted, the neighborhood approved the dog park idea, and I continued fostering and volunteering with the rescue. Sharon's house sold to a young couple who immediately came over to introduce themselves. They were friendly and easygoing, excited to be part of the community. They had a cat named Whiskers and asked if that would be a problem with my dogs. "Not at all," I assured them. "Ghost and Freya have met cats before. As long as Whiskers stays in your yard, we won't have any issues." They looked relieved. "We heard stories about the previous owner. Sounds like she was difficult." "She had issues," I said diplomatically. "But that's done now. The HOA is much more reasonable these days." The family that wanted to adopt all 4 beagles came for a home visit. They were in their 60s, retired, with a large property in North Scottsdale. They'd had beagles before and understood the breed's quirks. The baying, the food motivation, the determination to follow any interesting scent. I watched them interact with the dogs, saw how gently they handled each one, how they already had names picked out. This was the right home. The adoption was finalized on a Saturday in October, exactly 1 year after I'd first fostered Luna. The full circle of it wasn't lost on me. After the beagles left, Ghost, Freya, and I had the house to ourselves for the first time in months. It felt too quiet again. "Want to take a break from fostering?" Rick asked when I told him about the strange emptiness. "No," I said immediately. I just need to adjust to the quiet. What have you got? He laughed. You're addicted to rescue work. Maybe, but it's a good addiction. Well, we've got a 3-year-old German Shepherd who needs socialization work. She was kept chained in a yard her whole life, not abused but extremely under-socialized. She's scared of everything but not aggressive. She needs someone patient who can help her learn the world isn't scary. Send me her profile. The German Shepherd, named Dakota by the rescue, arrived the next day. She was beautiful but terrified, cowering in her crate, flinching at every sound. Ghost, with his usual gentle wisdom, approached slowly. He lay down next to her crate, not pushing, just being present. Freya copied him, and the two Huskies created a calm space around Dakota. It took 3 days for Dakota to venture out of her crate voluntarily. Another week before she'd let me pet her without trembling. But slowly, with Ghost and Freya's help, she began to trust. Watching her transformation over the following months was incredibly rewarding. She learned that TVs didn't eat you, that vacuum cleaners were annoying but not dangerous, that car rides led to fun places like parks and not scary places like vet offices. She learned to play, tentatively at first, then with increasing confidence. Ghost and Freya taught her, showing her how to chase toys, how to wrestle safely, how to just be a dog. By December, Dakota was almost unrecognizable from the terrified creature who'd arrived. She still had anxious moments, but she'd come so far. The rescue posted her success story, and applications flooded in. But I already knew who the right adopter was. Detective Sarah Walsh had stopped by during her investigation of Sharon, and she'd met Dakota. There'd been an instant connection. Sarah had recently lost her own German Shepherd to old age and had been considering adopting again. I called Rick. I think Dakota's found her person. Yeah, Detective Walsh. She's calm, patient, has experience with anxious dogs and works from home most days. Plus, Dakota already likes her. Rick arranged the meeting, and watching Sarah and Dakota together confirmed what I'd suspected. They were perfect for each other. The adoption went through just before Christmas. Sarah sent me photos regularly of Dakota thriving in her new home, no longer afraid, finally living the life she deserved. Christmas in Meadowbrook Estates was spectacular that year. Without Sharon's restrictions, people went all out with decorations. The Parkers created a display that rivaled professional shows. And Sophie, now with hair grown back from her treatment, helped organize a neighborhood light tour for charity. The new HOA board embraced the celebration, even organizing a decoration contest with categories like Most Creative and Best Traditional Display. It was fun instead of stressful. I kept my decorations simple, but participated in the spirit of things. Ghost and Freya posed for photos wearing antler headbands, looking dignified despite the absurdity. The photos got hundreds of likes on the rescue's social media, helping spread awareness about fostering. January brought the 1-year anniversary of the new board. They'd accomplished amazing things: reformed bylaws, built community, restored finances, and started the dog park project. The park was scheduled to open in March, and the whole neighborhood was excited. At the anniversary meeting, Patricia pulled me aside. "Patrick, we want to thank you. Your fight against Sharon, your willingness to stand up for what was right, it gave others courage to do the same. You helped change this community for the better." "I just wanted to live my life and take care of my dog," I said. "Sometimes that's exactly what it takes. One person willing to say this isn't right and do something about it." She smiled. "Plus, your fostering work has inspired 3 other families in the neighborhood to get involved with rescue organizations. You've created a ripple effect of positive change. I hadn't known that." The idea that my actions had inspired others to help animals made everything worthwhile. The dog park opened on a Saturday in March with a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Half the neighborhood turned out with their dogs. Ghost and Freya played with dozens of other dogs, and the joy was palpable. The Parkers were there with their new puppy, a rescue they'd adopted after Sophie declared she wanted to help animals like Patrick does. Seeing Sophie, healthy and happy, playing with her puppy while Ghost gently supervised, brought tears to my eyes. Jerome found me watching the scene. "You did good, Patrick. We all did. This is everyone's success." "True. But it started with you refusing to accept Sharon's bullying. That mattered." Rick showed up with 3 adoptable dogs from the rescue, using the park opening as an adoption event. All 3 dogs found homes that day with neighborhood families. As the sun set and families started heading home, I stayed for a while, watching Ghost and Freya play. They were tired but happy, covered in dirt and grinning those goofy husky grins. My phone buzzed. "Rick, got a call from a shelter about to euthanize a bonded pair of senior dogs. Owner died, no family, and shelters won't take seniors. Long shot, but any chance you could foster. They're small, 2 corgis, very calm." I didn't even hesitate. Bring them over. Because that's who I'd become. The guy who always had room for one more, who couldn't say no to animals in need, who turned his house into a revolving door of temporary love stories. Ghost looked over at me from across the park, like he knew exactly what I'd just agreed to. His expression was long-suffering but accepting. Freya just wagged his tail, happy to go along with whatever adventure came next. I drove home with my 2 best friends, my permanent pack, knowing that tomorrow would bring 2 elderly corgis who needed a soft place to land. After them, there'd be others. Scared dogs, injured dogs, abandoned dogs. Each one needing temporary care until they found their forever homes. It wasn't the life I'd imagined when I bought a house in Meadowbrook Estates. I'd pictured quiet suburban existence, maybe making a few friends, working from home with my dog. Instead, I'd found purpose, community, and a calling I never knew I had. I'd fought an unjust HOA and won. I'd helped reform a neighborhood. I'd given dozens of dogs second chances. All because Sharon Pemberton called animal control on my Husky, and Officer Rick Martinez left with adoption papers for a puppy. One moment, one connection, one small act of kindness that changed everything. I pulled into my driveway and looked at my house. It wasn't just a structure anymore. It was a home, a haven, a place where lost dogs found love before moving on to their forever families. Ghost and Freya jumped out of the truck and headed straight for the door, ready for dinner and relaxation. I followed them inside, already preparing space for 2 senior corgis, already thinking about their needs and how to make them comfortable. My phone buzzed again. A text from the new neighbors, the couple who'd bought Sharon's house. "Our cat just had kittens. Know anyone who might foster until they're old enough to adopt out?" I looked at Ghost and Freya. Ghost sighed dramatically. Freya's tail wagged harder. I typed back, "Let me make some calls. I know people." Because of course I did. I'd become the neighborhood's go-to person for animal rescue connections. And I was okay with that. Better than okay. I was exactly where I was supposed to be, doing exactly what I was meant to do. And it all started with one vindictive HOA president who thought calling animal control would make my life difficult, never imagining it would actually make my life meaningful instead. The universe has a sense of humor that way. I fed my dogs, set up the spare crates for tomorrow's arrivals, and settled on the couch with Ghost and Freya flanking me. This was peace. This was home. This was everything I needed, Whatever came next, whether more foster dogs or HOA challenges or neighborhood drama, I'd handle it. Because I wasn't alone. I had my pack, my community, and a purpose that got me up every morning with enthusiasm instead of dread. Sharon had tried to make my life miserable and instead had accidentally given me the greatest gift. She'd pushed me toward a path I never would have found otherwise. For that, in a weird way, I was almost grateful, almost. Ghost snoring filled the quiet house, and Freya stretched across my lap, impossibly heavy for a dog who thought he was still puppy-sized. Tomorrow would bring new dogs, new challenges, new opportunities to make a difference. But tonight, in this moment, everything was perfect, and that was more than enough.